All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. We've got a really amazing session. I'm going to be really quick because we've got amazing people that we want to get talking here. First and foremost, let's go ahead and talk about our guests. We're super happy, excited to have them on here today. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Dan Gavol from Google, the group product manager over at Google, Marcel Becker, senior director of product management over at Yahoo, our own VP of deliverability, Kate Naruzzi, one of my mentors of all time, who's taught me everything in deliverability, Mr. Nick Schaefer, and last but not least, the two amazing hosts from our podcast, Emails Not Dead. Don't forget about that, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. You can also follow that amazing podcast, JT and Eric. I will go like that, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all take this away. I'll step out back, but let me know anything, all right?
Yeah. Wait. Where's everybody? Oh no. Well, I thought we were all dressing up, and now I'm having issues here, so I apologize, everybody.
All good, Eric.
JT,
All good.
go ahead and get us started, man.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I think I click out. I think everybody's making it in. Everybody's showing up. My name is Jonathan Torres. I like Thomas's great intro. I think that was so freaking awesome. Email's not dead. We're hosting. We're here live, which is probably not the best forum for people who are used to podcasting only, but we're going to try to make it work. So we're excited to have this conversation with everybody, and we're excited for the panel that we got. I think we've got some really good people. I know we've been talking about this quite a bit already through the year, our main topic. So we're going to just jump right into it. So let's go ahead and get out that way. I think I'm going to skip some of these intro panel things, or go through them pretty quickly because we've already gone through most of these slides. Myself, we got Eric, just so everybody knows. Then we got our full panel right here. Great people that are on here. I'm so stoked for all of this. So let's go ahead and get on with the questions. We're just going to jump right into these. The first one I know is going to be a fun one because what exactly was the Yahoo and Google update? I feel like everybody knows if you're in email and you've touched anything with an email, you probably have a good idea about this. But just in case, for those that don't know, we did have some updates. We had some updates in the authentication portion of your email sending infrastructure, pipeline, and everything else. So Google and Yahoo did some changes this year, and we're going to hear right from them in just a moment. But the change was to just help improve when it comes to the whole portion of authentication in the email space. So they started requiring DMARC to be posted on the domains that are sending. So it has to have the DMARC records. It has to have at least an enforcement policy of none, and really be authenticating correctly for senders that are sending at high volumes of email, right? Those bulk email senders, we're looking at that piece. That's our first step into the authentication portion and what that's going to be. So that was earlier this year. I don't remember the exact dates. I don't know if anybody wants to jump in if they have that offhand. I think it was in March. I see Marcel nodding. March. We're going to call it March. But, we definitely had a lot of things going on there. There was a lot of email industry updates that were happening. Email industry I want to say like energy, like the hustle and bustle, because we knew that there was a change coming. It was announced. The change happened. The enforcement started happening, and there was a lot of senders who were right on that cusp of being ready for that, right on the cusp of doing that, and needed a little bit of a push, is what I'm going to say, and call it in that way, to really start doing better things with the authentication of the email and saying, this is who it's coming from. So from that's our jumping off point. That's where we're at. That's the landscape. So we'll go on to this next slide, which is going to be a fun one. How do people feel about the new bulk sender requirements? What survey's going out? From the Mailgun side, there's a survey. We wanted to check and a pulse check the senders themselves. What do they think about it? What's going on? How do they feel about this stuff? So these were the results from that. I think most of us already knew the results of this or had an idea of what the result was going to be, because email is such an integral part of what everybody's doing, of what businesses are doing still as a whole. So we knew that was going to be one of the big things that would be okay. The email's going to continue on. We hope that email's going to continue on. If not, we named our podcast incorrectly to say email's not dead, because we just think it's going to be something that lives on for a really good while. But we wanted to make sure that, or we wanted to see what everybody thought about that. And I think everybody's in that same boat where even though it's confusing, even though there is things that are happening within email, things that are being pushed forward, the landscape is changing, it's going to be okay. We're going to end up in a good spot. So that's kind of what we found out from there. And then from there, we're just going to go right on past this, because I think we're going to start getting into some of these fun questions and really getting involvement from everybody here. So we're going to go with, how did that adoption go? We have answers. We know, again, relying on the surveys that we put out there, but we wanted to hear from those involved. So I want to, kind of get everybody involved. I show Dan at the top of my screen, and I want to see, from your perspective, how did that go, Dan? Slight technical issues.
Okay.
I hear you now, Dan.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, sorry. So how did it go? It went really well. I think if you go back to the previous slide, if you group a bunch of these colors together, the green, the orange, the peach, it's the majority of senders. You're looking at, almost 80% of senders saying, okay, it's either really good, it's necessary, it's complex and confusing, which means that they got into it and tried to resolve it. And I think that's a good representation of where we were. It started with more of the complex and confusing and moved towards the green as we went on. And the proof is in the pudding. Like, if you look at the portion of messages that are safer for all users, for senders, people are getting on this early and are securing their messages, and so it went really well. And we're excited by the excitement in the industry. I don't think anybody had as much excitement as Thomas, but generally we saw the same level of energy as you said, and we're very happy with how things are going.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. I mean, yeah, and from, I know our side, we saw that too. Marcel, what did you experience from your side?
It's the same. I think, finally people are paying attention to the right things, right? What should have been done over a decade ago. Yes, sometimes, you have to use a stick and maybe a carrot, but I think in general, we see the industry really agreeing with the idea of why we're doing these things. But at the same time, I think we're also seeing that there's still a very, very, very long way to go. And I think you have some data which supports that, and we will probably dive into that a little later.
Definitely. And we can definitely share this graph here as well, where it's, with the changes that senders made to comply with the new rules. And I think it's one of those things where there was changes that needed to be made. And again, for me, it was just that slight little bit of push that some people needed, that they were there, they were on the cusp, they were doing a lot of the things mostly correct and almost there, and this was just the last little bit to go off. And it really is one of those things that's nice to see the adoption, and that people were willing to do it and that quickly moved into it. I think is one of the very nicer things that we saw overall with email senders. So I'm going to go on to the next question, and then we'll kind of dive into some other opinions and what we're seeing is in the industry as well. So Next question is going to be, does anything surprise you regarding sender readiness? I want to first pivot over to Kate. I see you there, Kate. I really want to hear from you and see if you see or have seen anything when it comes to, sender readiness and what you have noticed as far as all the email senders are concerned with that.
I think a lot of people were too nervous at the beginning, especially the smaller senders. The 5,000 emails per day probably it was necessary because otherwise there would be always this question, are we do we need to comply? Do we not need to comply? But then when it was that threshold of 5,000 that was announced by Yahoo, started creating unnecessary panic, I believe, within the very, very smaller senders that they would not even being impacted. Overall, I think people overreacted, the marketing people or senders overreacted at the beginning, but as soon as they found out this is for the ecosystem, this is for securing the email ecosystem as a whole, then they started finding ways to comply and be ready for that. So I have always been a promoter of DMARC reject. Very, very happy that this happened and the industry moved towards publishing a DMARC record. I just hope that the next step is the P reject and people do not just publish a P none and then go about it, because honestly, the P equal to none does not do much.
It's not a set it and forget it kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey there, Nick, did you see a lot of the same, or do you feel like you have the same sentiment there?
Yeah, absolutely. To Kate's point, I think, when the original information started coming out, I think a lot of the smaller senders started to freak out, because there are a lot of them. You think about your, Boy Scout troops, maybe they don't have their own domain. They're literally using domains like Gmail. Obviously, there's been changes since then where they can't do that and they need to move to something. But I think there was originally a lot of concern, but I think it was to Marcel's point, these are the right things. And I think the ESPs, the deliverability professionals, the ISPs, the people in the email community always knew this was the right thing. And I think the senders are realizing that now, as that graph showed. There's been a large uptick in adoption of DMARC. I remember back at MOG when DMARC was an idea and slowly rolling out. It was hard to get people to adopt it. So these things are necessary. To Kate's point, we need to get to P equals reject. This is the start. We have a long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this kind of rolls into the next point here, or the next question pretty seamlessly, is why should everybody, should everybody do this? And, the reason why, I know, speaking with Marcel in the past, 10 plus years ago, this was a dream, right? A twinkle in your eye of trying to get this authentication going. Do y'all want to dive into a little bit more about, why should senders be getting this set up?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It is, as we keep saying, right? It is designed to really protect everybody involved in this ecosystem, right? Equally, the senders and the brands, as well as the receivers. Without proper authentication in place, without properly protecting your own domain from being abused, bad actors will abuse it. And I always hear, or often, almost every day actually, from smaller senders saying, this is not really important. We don't have the budget. It's in the comments here as well. We don't have the budget. Nobody understands this. And we're really just a very, very small brand. Nobody will phish us, right? Nobody will abuse us. The fact is, bad actors are probably already abusing your domain, right? They don't care about your brand, right? They don't care that you're, a mom and pop phishing shop or whatever. They care about the reputation you have, and they care about the fact that they can use your good reputation to get into our users' mailbox and inbox and get their emails delivered. And that will in turn actually, ding your reputation, it will ding your brand, and it will cause you eventually to have a deliverability issue, right? And then the bad actors, they will just move on to the next domain, which is unprotected. And we see this happening every single day. So while the big guys, the big senders are protecting their brands now properly, there's still a long way to go. And it's not so much about, as Dan always said, it's not the tax on being able to send email. It is designed to make the entire ecosystem much more secure and protect everybody participating, the senders and the receivers.
Yeah, that's an awesome point. Dan, do you feel the same, right?
Yeah, I like you wouldn't send business letters without an envelope, without sealing the envelope, and without signing your content, right? And so these requirements do the same thing for email. And if you think that because you're sending at small volumes or your business is small, you're at lower risk, that's not the case. Unlike financial fraud, where the bigger your business is, the more money you have, the more credit you have, with email, to Marcel's point, it's more about how you're viewed at the eyes of the mailbox providers and your ability to send at large volumes without being tampered and so or rejected. And so one of the things that we're seeing is that schools, local schools, K-12 schools are being hijacked because all the other options are gone. And so abusers will always find a way to leverage the weakest link in the chain to get their messages across. And these schools are not going to find out until it's very late in the game. The new school year has started and suddenly all their emails are bouncing because their reputation tanked. And I think Eric and Thomas shared with me that the cost of implementing these changes is equal to one email campaign. And so by the time you implemented the changes, you're protecting your second, third, fourth campaign. And so we want everybody to do this. Protect your brand early on, get in the habit of managing it. And to Kate's point from before, as we get deeper and deeper into the requirements, have a position of how you want to manage the traffic that's coming from your business.
Yeah.
Those are good words. Good words. Well, I know we kind of want to move on to a few of these other questions. And I think this next set of things we really want to focus in on is going to be particular to the Yahoo and Google side. So as much as you want to share, as much as you can share, and we'll go through these. And I really, I think it's going to be really focused in on that. And then we'll kind of go on from there, because I think we have some interesting projections, if you will, for the future, just depending on what things look like. But let's go ahead and go to this next one. So as many of us are getting prepared, what was it like for Google and Yahoo behind the scenes? So I don't know if both of you have an answer for this, as things were rolling out, as it was coming to be, what can you share from what was going on internally with everybody else getting prepared to switch over and start implementing those records?
I think for us, it was primarily going to that slide we talked about before. How do we move from the peach to what's going on to the green, right? And so a lot of senders who have big businesses, small businesses, had a lot of questions, and it was more about creating clarity on what do you need to do, how do you need to do it, and so on, and answering questions that they had along the way. As an outcome, our Help Center articles became robust, and Postmaster tools became very clear what we need to provide. And so it was awesome to see that about 20% of your survey responders logged into the new Postmaster tools and are getting answers. And it was more about how do we enable you to continue to run your business with this certainty without freaking out. Nothing good will come from freaking out. And so how do we provide the best answers we can for you to take action?
Yeah. What about you, Marcel?
What was it like behind the scenes? I don't know. Dan and I, we went and had a drink every night. No, that's not what happened. I think really mainly three things which stood out for me. A was just watching everybody out there making things up. That was interesting, right? People could have reached out and asked questions, but a lot of people either for malicious reasons, I would say, they made things up on our, on famous social media sites, or in some cases, people just made things up and assumed things. made up dates and things like that. And they could have just communicated with us, right? But that also is the second part of that. We have seen amazing outreach back to us and just having an open conversation and communication. And then this really resulted in collaboration, not just obviously between the mailbox providers, but between all the mailbox providers involved, as well as the sending community, tool providers. And that is really something I love to see, right? And that's something I really want to see continue, because as we work together to build that better foundation, right, everybody can benefit from that. And the third part is really, we have seen this gaining traction in, outside of our little bubble, right? I don't want to say mainstream, but close to it, they started paying attention, right? They asked, okay, what is this? Why is this happening, right? And how can a normal user actually benefit from that, right? So that has shown a light on what we were trying to do there. And I think that also helped us to spread the word a little bit, right? Because one of the stats you showed is it's still 40%, 35% never heard about it, right? And that wasn't right.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of great things. The Yahoo Sender Hub, going there for information, submitting tickets, documentation is robust there for you to see. The same thing with Google Postmaster Tools, submitting your requests there and reviewing your stats there is a great tool that we always talk about and really want people to go and utilize. Moving on to the next question. In previous conversations about this, I know that y'all were going to do them in kind of phased rollouts, kind of getting feedback from folks. The way that y'all were, the feedback that you received from the community during any of the rollouts, did that, does that change the way that you're going to do future stuff, or y'all feel like this was the perfect way to go?
Marcel, I'm going to punt to you because my crystal ball is in the shop. I think the good thing and what we want to continue is this engagement with the email sending community, and make sure that we continue to leverage email as the cheapest and efficient email marketing tool that it is. But for us to do so, it has to be secure. And so we want to continue the engagement, and that's something we'll definitely continue to leverage.
Yeah, the same, along the same lines, right? As I said before, I think one of the really interesting things that happened out of that is just the increased collaboration due to attention, but also people, I think, realize that, yes, it actually makes sense to work together, right? As I've been saying this for years, I don't like the senders versus receivers, like these different parties and different camps kind of attitude, and there shouldn't be a wall between these camps, right? We're all in this together. We're all serving the same customers at the end of the day. And I would love to see more collaboration. Part of that is on us, right? We learned a lot on, okay, what is the right level of information? Like, should we be talking about a limit of 5,000 emails or not? Should we be talking about dates or not? And how do we do that, right, to get the message across in the right way?
Yeah. And I know your crystal ball is in the shop there. But Marcel, I'll continue with you. Is there any future things that are coming up that you can discuss with us?
Yeah, totally. I think when we announced this last year, it was in October. I think there's another October coming around. Would love to announce something new. No, but it has been mentioned before. It has been mentioned in the comments there. P equals none is not the end goal, right? P equals none for a DMARC policy is like having no policy at all, right? Or to use Dan's example, this is like you put the letter into the envelope and then you forgot to seal it, right? You might as well not use an envelope at all. So P equals reject, right? That is the goal. And we have seen a lot of senders saying, I just do none and I'm good, right? They're not even doing due diligence to see if DMARC then passes or not. They just put the DNS record in there and they call it a day. So expect that we need senders to have an actual policy in there, quarantine or a reject very, very soon. And don't wait for any announcements, right? You should look at your traffic today and make sure it actually passes DMARC and that you're all set for a policy change to reject eventually.
Dan,
Dan,
what about your
anything you want to divulge with us?
Yeah, just echo the same sentiment. Use this moment in time to learn about what you need to do to protect your traffic. And getting to P equals reject requires a lot of thoughtfulness about how you want to go about it. It's not something that you set everything and move on. And so boost your email teams, have a position of how you want to secure your messages. And I keep saying this, like, Google and Yahoo rejecting your mail is not the worst thing that can happen to your business. Being hijacked is. Having no direct communications with your customers is. Having your brand tank in the eyes of your customers is detrimental to conducting business. And it takes a long time to recover. And so what I would encourage all of you to do is to spend the time, use this moment that all this information is out there, that webinars like this one are being put together to educate the broader community, and just make sure that you have the tools you need to protect your brand and your users.
Those are great words. And I think it's with all of that we want to continue into the next question. And I know Dan, Marcel, thank you for the responses. I'm gonna let you guys take a quick break from responding, because I really want to hear from Nick and Kate on this next one first, and then we'll kind of go back to you guys because it really is just an opinion. We're gonna have to, everybody get ready to pull out the crystal ball, because we're definitely gonna be talking about what would be in the future. Because the big question is, do you ever see P equals reject being enforced as the for authentication? So we'll go with you first, Kate. I really want to hear your thoughts.
Yes, absolutely. This is the hope for me, because if we stay with P equal none, basically we are not doing anything rather than just publishing a record. But I would recommend people to go to quarantine and buy percentages, like go quarantine by 10%, 20%, and kind of evaluate. I do not recommend people go to P reject from P equal to none immediately. So try the quarantine in between, start with the percentages, look at the reports. If you do not have the bandwidth or the knowledge or resources internally within your company to analyze the reports, there are a ton of really, really good vendors out there. DMARC is one of my favorites. You can talk to these vendors and then they can monitor those for you, because you are doing all of these things to protect your brand first and protect the email community. So if you need to also think about how you are going to use the reports and how you are going to apply the enforcements. For the implementation also, if you don't have the resources in-house, there are a ton of vendors. So I highly recommend if you don't have the resources, look for the vendors, go to P quarantine, gradually move on to P reject, but have a timeline in mind. Don't forget about it. Oh, we moved to P quarantine, so nothing else needs to be done.
Yeah, I like that. Well, I mean, there's some people who are daredevils out there and will go, don't recommend that. But if you're crazy and you want to go all the way to P equals reject, in one go, you do you. But it's definitely not the recommendation. Thank you for calling that in particular out, Kate, because it is super important. I think people, you don't want to do that. And for those, I saw it come up in the questions. So just to real quick address that part of it. The P equals reject portion is that if it does not pass that DMARC check, it's going to be rejected from coming into a system. So just so everybody knows that we're all on the same page. Yeah. If it's set to reject, it's not getting through. If it does not pass. So
I know real quick, Dan, I know you got a jet here. So if you had any final thoughts on that before you got to go.
I think ideally the answer is yes. Like, again, this is me projecting my own thoughts. But I think it's going to be a journey to get there. And so it starts with you setting a DMARC policy today and learning the tools available to protect your brand, and then over time getting to a point of having good policy to protect your traffic. And then I gotta drop it. I will leave you with parting words of, if you need support, there are many resources online. Either use what we publish, what Yahoo publishes, or find a trusted source like this one that can guide you through it. It is really not that scary. And find somebody you trust that can guide you through how to protect your brand.
Thanks, Dan.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I know you got to head out, but thank you for joining us. And yeah, we'll keep going the conversation with Nick. I want to hear from you, man. Like, what have you heard on this?
Yeah, to answer the question here on the screen, yeah, I mean, they've basically all but said it. Yes, P equals reject will come at some point, and it should. It should. My favorite way to talk about this is actually using real world examples and thinking back to like 5 years ago or so, whenever we updated DMARC policies for Mailgun. It was a fun experience, and honestly, it's something that all of the senders should do. You should start to go through this. To Kate's point, go through the phases, go through the quarantine first, set the percentages, take a slow roll on this. But once you get this set up, you will see data. Depending on your business or maybe your industry, you may see some nasty stuff in there. Us as an ESP, we saw people trying to send as Mailgun all the time. So we knew how important it was to get protected. But it's also really, a good, process to go through just to look at those reports. We had traffic coming from sources that were actually us that we didn't know wasn't being authenticated properly. So yes, it is a good practice to go through. It's something that all senders should do. And Marcel talked about it earlier. Bad actors will abuse your domain if it's not protected. So everyone should be planning for that, getting ready for it, before it's a hard requirement from a Yahoo or a Google or anyone else. Get prepared, get ready, so that you don't have to do the whole panic whenever someone announces a big change like this.
Yeah. That I mean, I agree. I don't want to insert my opinion too much, but I definitely agree. Marcel, like I know you're kind of the lone person left from representation from the actual platform itself, but I was kind of to hear from you. I don't know. You've said it a little bit here, and I know kind of echo a sentiment of doing that. But anything different that you'd want to say as far as like your kind of projection into wanting to do this at some point?
It's what I said before, right? We prepare now. This would come rather sooner than later. Don't wait.
Awesome. Heck yeah. Well, and we do have some data where we do, we can see what senders are doing, what policies they're enforcing. So this is a lot of, again, survey based. What are they doing? How do things stand in the landscape right now? There is a lot of P equals none. There is some P equals quarantine, some P equals reject. So, and there's a lot of unsure, more than I think would be preferable, but at least we know there's movement because we know it's been a slow rollout and getting people to move bigger into those or more into those buckets. I think one of the things that the percentage here doesn't show is that there was a lot that didn't have any DMARC policy. So getting people into none first is a stepping stone, and then moving into those other ones is definitely a big help. So keep doing good work, all you senders out there. Like keep moving and keep progressing into that authentication piece, because it is definitely going to be something that the writing's on the wall. I feel that there's gonna be an additional requirement at some point. So take that first step, start diving in, start investigating and figuring out, just like what everybody else here has said. I don't think you need me to say it and repeat it again, but just to reinforce it all. So we'll go on to one of the other questions that I think is going to be good. I really just want to touch on this. Marcel, if you have anything to share on this, great, and if not, we can move on. But I definitely just want to ask anything that you wish we would have changed. So this is kind of like just did you feel this was a smooth rollout? Was everything as good as it could have possibly been? Or is there anything that you wish, like, hey, we probably could have done this a little bit better?
Yeah, I was surprised how unprepared the industry is, and also how many experts or people who claimed they were experts actually turned out not to be experts at all in this. So knowing this, I would have done maybe a little bit more prep, but then there's also the question, when do you draw the line, right? How long do you wait? Is 10 years enough to wait for this stuff? Is 1 year, 2 years? At some point you have to keep moving and then just work with what you have and continue to have an open conversation with the entire community as we're doing right now, right? As well, and just keep moving.
That's awesome. That's perfect. And we'll just keep moving on because I think there's some good things to share on with that. The kind of seeing within that space and what we're talking about there, and where where they saw were senders who took the survey. Sorry, the senders that took the survey, where they believe that they were with this. So did they experience any issues? We did see that there was a lot of people that said no, that they were unsure of them experiencing any issues with that. And I think to Marcel's point there, I think that just helps reinforce that them being more aware and more prepared, and having had we try to do as much as we could, I think, from every point, where I know for our podcast and for things that were being said to customers, it was definitely a push to educate them as best as possible. But that education can only go so far. And I think making sure that there is involvement, that people know, and people are seeing that happen, I think is definitely going to be one of those things I think in the future that all of us can try to participate in. The other thing that we had seen with that on this next chart here is what the concern was, and again, to me, education thing, right? If those very concerned, if we can talk them off a ledge and to help them implement things and help them actually take those steps into doing it, I think it would have also helped smooth out the rollout. Which is one of those things that we had definitely seen. I don't know from your side, either Kate, Nick, if you guys had seen or heard anything about anybody that had that concern or was very concerned about it. I know, Nick, you said that Mailgun had already done this and we were kind of prepared for it, but anything else that you heard as far as the community is concerned?
Yeah, I think that, we had talked about this, JT. I think that some people were concerned. I mean, looking at the report here, you can see the different groups of people. I think there were some that were really concerned. I think those senders are the ones that maybe weren't authenticating properly before these changes were required. So they hadn't built up things like domain reputation. So maybe they were piggybacking off of, reputation of another domain, depending on the ESP and how messages are signed. There was real concern there. But at the end of the day, a lot of the legitimate senders that were doing things, for the most part, the correct way, they didn't really have concern because I know that moving to these policies was the right thing. So it's been a fun experience at times, crazy experience at times. But I think that most senders didn't have a whole lot of concern when it came to this. They know it had to be done.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Kate? I don't know if Kate, from your side, if you had seen anything as well.
I have, yes. Given Yahoo and Google combined together, they carry over 85% of internet traffic. People were worried, at least the brands. Majority of the enterprise brands that I work with, they already had a P reject implemented. There were some medium-sized senders that they didn't, and we had to go through a lot of education. The Postmaster sites for both Google and Yahoo were well explained, so that helped a lot. We also published extra, even though we had the articles on DMARC and SPF and DKIM, we also published more information. We did a lot of internal training for our support team. So all of that helped these medium-sized senders or even small senders, even the small senders that they wouldn't even send 5,000. I think I loved the part about that this announcement encouraged everyone to at least start thinking about it. Majority of the people did something about it. The ones that they didn't, they are trying to. So all in all, I think this was a good move, good announcement, and people after a few months realized that it wasn't that bad at all. So the panic was unnecessary.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll share one last graph here. We're getting ready to wrap up here in just a moment, but I think this kind of this question in the survey is definitely one of those things where I think people feel it. I think people know and understand that that's what's in the air and that's what's at stake. Is if we're all going to be continuing to use email and continuing to use email as a platform, it has to evolve. It has to get safer. It has to be better protected for everybody involved. So I think people feel it, that it's going to be one of those things that's happened. They might need to push again, just like they did the last time around, to put any kind of DMARC policy in place. But if that push comes, be better educated. Start now, like everybody's saying. You can start doing that today, and that way, if it comes, when it comes, you're ready to go. So yeah, I think with that, we'll get ready to wrap the panel. Thomas, are you still in the house?
Let me see. Yep. I am here. Hearing loud and clear, y'all. Awesome. Real quick, I want to go and thank our amazing hosts, Jonathan JT Torres and Mr. Eric the Voice Trinidad, for hosting this amazing panel with Dan and Marcel. Make sure you follow their show over here at mailgun.com/resources/podcast. You also get to hear my lovely voice too, host on there every now and then. But I want to thank them, and I also want to thank Kate. And I want to thank Nick for most importantly being here today and taking time out of the days to be here, because it takes a lot. But thank y'all so much. Actually, and let me cue up that crowd for y'all too. There we go.
Yeah, nice.
There we go.
Yeah, thanks, Marcel. Thanks for coming out. Really appreciate you as always, being able to jump on with us.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and let y'all go about your busy days, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap up day one for email camp. But thank y'all so much for being here, most importantly. And make sure you follow along with the Marcel, the link for the sender portal for you. Remind us one more time what it is.
Senders.yahooinc.com. You can also go to postmaster.yahoo.com or postmaster.ao.com. Doesn't matter.
Perfect. Thank you, Marcel. Awesome, everyone. Thank y'all so much. I'm going to go and let these amazing people go about their day, and I will see y'all at the wrap-up session. Take care, everyone. See you there in just a second.